Welcome to the 33 Days of Halloween. I am your host, Freddy of Freddy Eats Media. This is a show where I will chronologize, analyze, and just shoot the shit about a specific slasher movie from one of the three major slasher franchises. The order of which I will discuss each film will be chronologically, so what better way to start than with 1978's Halloween? But first, some pre-production. The initial idea for Halloween can be credited to Irwin Yablans, who came up with the idea of having a mass killer hunt babysitters over a single night. That idea then organically grew to having the single night be Halloween night, and after Yablans looked through a catalog of horror films and just films in general, he found that not a single film had Halloween as its main title, or even Halloween as a word in its title. So with that, we have an idea. Now we must seek financing. For that, Yablans went to Mustafa Akkad, who at this point had already produced and directed several films. In the end, Mustafa Akkad will finance $300,000 for this project, which, to put in perspective, is not a lot of money, but was probably more money than any of the filmmakers on this film had experienced with. Which brings us to the one and only John Carpenter. According to Yablans, Carpenter and him had the discussion over tuna fish, and Carpenter was comfortable to sign on after he was promised full creative control if he could make the film within the small budget. Carpenter even brought with him film producer and then girlfriend Deborah Hill to not only produce the film but to help with the scripting as well. For location, the crew filmed in South Pasadena, California. Carpenter notes that the residents of the town that they shot in were very kind to them and very supportive of what they were doing. But what is Halloween? An escaped mental patient named Michael Myers flees Smiths Grove Sanitarium 15 years after he murdered his sister when he was just 6 years old. Michael makes his way home to Haddonfield, Illinois. Once there, he dons a white mask as he stalks and kills several teenagers in a Halloween night of mayhem. Michael's main adversary in this is Dr. Sam Loomis, played by Donald Pleasence, who, if you ask me, gives a phenomenal performance throughout this entire film, and probably most of the time throughout the franchise. If there's one thing you cannot say about Pleasence is that he did not at least give most of what he had throughout the franchise. But in this film in particular, I think he is a standout. His fears through Myers, even the risk of Myers getting out, the never ever, the evil is gone. The phenomenal quotes that Carpenter and Hill came up with, delivered to perfection by Pleasence. Now's probably a good time to go through the rest of the cast. We'll start at the top. Her head is cut off, but I do not feel like changing it. Is of course Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Laurie Strode will go on to be an iconic figure throughout the franchise, but we will talk about her specifically throughout the context of the individual movie. So with this, I think she is a great final girl. I think she is the great kind of offset to her peers around her. Speaking of such, Nancy Keys, then Nancy Loomis, played Annie, and PJ Soles played Linda, who I think their kind of sporadic and bombastic, bubbly behaviors kind of perfectly offsets Jamie's more kind of shy and reserved performance. Curtis was even worried that she wouldn't portray Laurie to the fullest because she felt that she related more to the Linda and Annie characters. Next we have Charles Cyphers, who plays Sheriff Brackett, Annie's father, who I think is great at kind of going off of Pleasence's performance. I think they work really well in their scenes together. I think he offers the perfect amount of skepticism to the events that he is being told. We then have Kyle Richards, who plays Lindsay Wallace, one of the young girls that Annie is originally babysitting, and then she puts it onto Laurie to babysit. And to be honest, I only know her from her reality TV career afterwards. I just remember my stepmom watching shows with her on it. Next we have Brian Andrews, who plays Tommy Doyle, the kid that Laurie was in charge of babysitting on Halloween. I love Tommy in this film. I think he is the perfect amount of annoying, and I think that Laurie's kind of comfort with him is believable. I think they work really well together. Next, we have John Michael Graham, who plays Bob, one of Michael's victims. I also forgot to mention Andy and Linda were the other two on-screen victims, that is. Next, we have Nancy Stevens playing Nurse Marion. She also will play a bigger role within the Halloween franchise. However, within the context of this film, she's only in like the beginning scene when Michael initially escapes from Smith's Grove. But I do think that her chemistry with Pleasance in that scene is very like noticeable. Next we have Arthur Mallet as the graveyard keeper, and he's only in a single scene, but it's a phenomenal scene. I love his performance in it alone. Why did they do it? And we're not going to go through like all the bullies because they don't play a pivotal role, but we will say Richie is, fun fact, played by Mickey Yablans, the son of Erwin Yablans from the beginning. So let's talk about my thoughts. As simple and as low budget as it is, John Carpenter is able to frame such a simple concept and use just very simple elements like lighting and space and just framing to deliver a, to this day, still creepy feature. I forgot to even mention Nick Castle, who is the man under the mask and plays Michael Myers in this film. Tony Moran plays as Michael's face at the end of the film when he has his final like scuffle with Laurie. But Nick's performance, as simple as it is, and hear me out, it was very, very simple. John Carpenter went as far as to say, don't act, just walk. Nick Castle comments on how little direction he was really given for the role. But I think it's that lack in its complexity that makes Michael Myers so scary. The slow movements, but the impending doom that he brings with those movements. He's my favorite for a reason. Michael, that is, not necessarily Nick Castle. Not to, we'll get into it. But all in all, I think this film is excellent. I think this film kind of stands the test of time. Some people may comment that the dialogue is cheesy at points, specifically between the female teenagers, and I don't know, I quite find it charming. It was heavily influenced by Deborah Hill's own experience growing up with her teenage girlfriend, so, I mean, there's that. So that's why I'm giving it a come the fuck on, dude, it's Halloween out of 10. Or 10. Yeah, we gotta talk. So if you made it this far, you probably won't mind listening to me yap a little bit longer, but this was initially supposed to be a YouTube series. It is now a TikTok series. The first episode was initially supposed to come out yesterday. I'm still making it currently. So I'm bringing it over to TikTok. I'm gonna change it up a little bit. It's gonna be much shorter, obviously, but I'm going to chronologize my feelings with each film, why I love it. Oh, by the way, I guess I gotta get with my personal aspect of this film, but I just was always attracted, what the fuck? Something about Michael Myers in the Halloween films always just garnered my interest. And it wasn't until 2 years ago when I watched this film for the first time all the way through. But since then, it has become one of my absolute favorites, especially around the holiday. But yeah, I love it. And so day one, Halloween, we got that off. So if you're following along, today is Halloween, and if we're doing all of them chronologically by release, tomorrow is 1980's Friday the 13th. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you tune back in tomorrow. My name is Freddy of Freddy Eats Media. You're watching Fear of Boredom, and this is the 33 Days of Halloween.